Hello, everyone, and welcome. You're listening to the 888 Align podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Hanna. I'm a serial entrepreneur who likes to immerse into many facets of life, focusing on growth, mindset, healing, and soul alignment. 8 represents strength, prosperity, balance, power, overcoming, stability, and to me, the yin and yang of life. Pain weaves the gratitude for the beauty in life and appreciation for our generational evolution. You're in the right place if you're looking to dive deeper into finding meaning within yourself and your life experiences, work towards transforming into and aligning with your highest version of yourself, take action steps towards building and creating the life of your dreams, as well as explore discussions on health and wellness, balance, self-care, plus areas like travel, fashion, art, culture, manifestation, entrepreneurship, and even a little spirituality. To be 888 aligned means to be aligning to your strongest and most powerful and enlightened version of yourself. To continue to evolve and always be open to growth while staying true to your core values and individuality. Let's get started with this week's alignment. Hello, everyone, and good morning. Welcome back to 888 Aligned. Thank you for taking the time to check out the podcast and tune in as always. And it only feels right to point out that today's episode is episode number 8. So I wanted to talk about an important topic today that reflects and aligns with the whole meaning behind why I started this podcast, aside from what I mentioned in previous episodes. And the more I put out episodes, the more I feel empowered behind what this was for me, which was deeply subconscious as well, which is the art of detaching in order to allow yourself to play a bigger role in your own life. So what does that even mean? For those of you who struggle with caring too much about what other people may think of you or perceive you as, or even feel you constantly have to prove yourself to others who misunderstand you, this episode will be the one for you. And for those of you who are held back in life at the fear of being judged at what you want to do, as wildly different as it may be from those around you, or just because it may appear outside of your wheelhouse to others, this episode is also for you. And lastly, for those of you who think about what you'd choose to do with your life and say, oh, if it were another lifetime, I would do this, but that's just wishful thinking or a pipe dream, and can't imagine possibly changing up how things are in your life right now, this episode is also for you. Now, what does it mean to play a bigger role in your own life? If you've heard or even played into the whole main character energy trend that started around the pandemic and continued on over the last few years, then you may know what I'm talking about. Otherwise, think of it like this. What is the main character in a TV show, movie, book, play? It's the person the story is all about, right? The one that takes center focus and is showing up in practically every scene. The one where all the other characters, which we call supporting characters, seem to gravitate toward and play a role in the main character's life. When we see these stories, we see how all of the other supporting characters are usually not playing a fully independent role, right? They are consumed with what is going on in the main character's life. And that main character is making decisions and choices that reflect how they want to move through their life. And this usually impacts the supporting characters' lives as well. When you are so consumed with everyone and everything else going on in your life to a point of not even choosing how your days go, your weeks go, your life goes, when you worry about taking action on certain things you love because you don't want to be judged by someone around you for doing it, when you don't express yourself and prevent yourself from being your true, authentic self because you don't want to be looked at funny or perceived differently, once again judged, and when you are pouring yourself empty into other people's lives so much that there is not even a drop left for you, you are holding yourself back from playing a main character role in your life. You are holding yourself back from allowing yourself to play a bigger role in your own life. And guess what? You're likely playing a supporting role in someone else's life. And this is twofold, right? Because we can absolutely play a supporting role in someone else's life while also being independently our own main character selves in our own lives. This comes with setting up the right boundaries. This way, we can make sure that we are writing our own story when it comes time to focus on ourselves and being the main character there while also showing up for the people we love. This isn't about being completely self-centered and focused only on yourself, and I think sometimes the narrative of the main character energy can sometimes be misinterpreted as that as well. Maybe we even see it through these movies, TV shows, and books, so we get our own perception of what it means. And remember, those are just exaggerated versions of things that happen in real life, right? But we can be main characters while also helping the world, being there for our friends and family, showing up when it's important, enjoying life within our own communities. And this is where I often say we are multifaceted beings. We don't need to be construed into a box and tell ourselves it's only one way or another. And if we really want to get deep and philosophical into it, even the concept of being a main character or supporting character are just made up things in our society strung together by actions that define what these roles mean, right? We do not have to abide by the exact definition of what those roles are. And that's usually when I'll point out that it's a break in the matrix, because we need to stop thinking of things with such a certain, solid, specific, and strict definition or concept because we were told to, from how we were raised or how even society tends to operate. When you think of how new concepts and ideas are born, it's from someone who is thinking so far outside of the box or the matrix that they bring in new concepts to their own reality and then eventually to the reality of others. That's how we have cars, planes, computers, phones, and all the things you use in your daily life, even the basic kitchen appliances that in the past were not even in existence, and maybe not a thought in someone's mind would ever exist. So the premise is, to be the main character in your own life, you need to start breaking the matrix of your own perception. Okay, I'm going to repeat that again. To be the main character in your own life, you need to start breaking the matrix of your own perception. And when you alter your perception, you alter your reality. And when you alter your reality, you alter the reality of others by creating a ripple effect of change in how our society operates. What someone once thought was crazy, weird, would never work, and all that exists in today's society because someone else didn't let the opinions of other people and what I like to say soft rules and structures of society stop them from living their life and playing a bigger role in their own life and the lives of others and the world. And so you can then do things like call someone on your cell phone, type on your computer, drive your car to the store, and hop on a plane to another destination. So with that, let's get into today's episode. When you allow yourself to be freely you, you can align yourself more with your higher self, your authentic self, and get closer to achieving what you were meant to do in this lifetime. What I believe personally, your soul came here to do in this lifetime. But to do this, sometimes it takes a little work to get to a point where your ego mind doesn't try to take over and stop you, because that's what comes with being human. First, what is our ego mind? Our ego mind is when you identify and say I. So it has to do with your personal beliefs, personality, habits. It's our internal voice and what you consider as yourself. It is partially conscious and partially subconscious. So it's what you're aware of when you think of yourself and what you will usually try to project onto others. So again, just to reference a previous episode, if you go back to episode 1 on the subconscious mind and projection, this really can all tie in together with the ego mind and those around you. Projectors are simply projecting from their ego mind because it is their perception of life. And the ego mind is basically made up from our external environment, our parents, how we grew up, our schooling, society, and community. And going back to some basic psychology, when we look at Freud and what his 3 components of the unconscious and conscious mind were, we have the id, ego, and superego. So when you may have gone over these in school at some point and kind of have a vague memory of what these are. And to keep it simple, the id is based off of our instincts and operates in the subconscious. It's what we start out with as newborns. The ego is based off of our reality and works in between the subconscious and conscious. And the superego is based off of our morality and operates between both, again, the subconscious and conscious. So the ego and superego develop as we grow from the id. And we are going to hone in on the ego mind. So the ego mind is also generally described as what can keep us in our insecurities, because it follows the reality principle. And by definition, the ego operates according to the reality principle, working out realistic ways of satisfying the id's demands, meaning the instinctual side of us that responds to basic needs, urges, and desires, often compromising or postponing satisfaction to avoid negative consequences of society. The ego considers social realities and norms, etiquettes, and rules in deciding how to behave. So how does the ego form based off of our societal constraints and rules? Well, our society trains us to follow a specific set of rules and ways of going about life. From how our parents and community raise us to even the fact that we go through school from kindergarten through high school and university, years and years of programming take place. While this is all happening, we have to, depending on where you live in the world, go by certain society rules and standards. Like in the US, for example, we have to adapt to the idea that we have to pay for healthcare and education. So how do we do that? We have to take certain steps to get there that impact how we operate our lives, with loans and taking certain jobs to pay for those loans, to even go to school to get a job that pays well. Before you know it, we start mapping out our lives at 18 years old with how we are going to pay our bills and live to work rather than work to live, which of course in other countries have the opposite philosophy and have different structures. Some free healthcare and education have other components that determine how their society is run. So we easily fall into this trap because it is how our society is constructed. We are also not taught in high school and really even college in the US how to budget, take care of our finances, build an independent life for ourselves that doesn't rely on the corporate world, because we live in a capitalist society that does well when we play roles into it. See, there you are even playing a supporting role. We get enthralled in our daily lives and responsibilities to pay into these systems we grow up in that we may quickly and easily forget the things we enjoy or dreamt of doing when we were little kids just playing around and dreaming. We may feel they are silly and irresponsible or even just for fun and not to be taken seriously. When what if these were the things we were meant to do with our lives before our school, our parents, and so on told us that they weren't going to get us far in life, they weren't meant for us, or they weren't the things that we should be spending all of our time on because we have adult responsibilities with bills to pay and things to take care of? Well, what if those things were the exact things that would break us free from this type of system? What if those things you dreamed of would be the things that would help you actually pay for those needs and necessities of life that everyone is so worried about us being able to pay for, that they train us into this belief system that we only have to go this one route in order to be safe and secure financially within our life? So how do we even get as far as going from a 9-to-5 to deciding to break out of the corporate world and go elsewhere? And I'm not saying that you suddenly become an entrepreneur either and take on that role, because in a way, depending on how you look at it, some people perceive working to build a dream and be your own boss is just as much as an entrapment, because you still have to put all the work in without the guarantee of a paycheck to live your life on your own terms, which is really at the will of society, which can also be viewed as its own kind of prison. Some people view that as its own kind of matrix as well. This is another take I've seen, and I can understand it. Just as the capitalistic society runs on employees working for corporations that run the society, it also runs on new businesses and the building of said society in that way as well. So what if it wasn't about any of that? These are all perceptions. These are all made up and also all in existence. What if it was just simply about breaking free from the things that made you unhappy? For some people, working a 9-to-5 brings them stability and satisfies something in them. For some people, working a 9-to-5 feels like hell and a trap for the rest of their life. It doesn't really matter. It just matters about how you feel about it personally. And you need to work on really thinking about, what does this make you feel? It doesn't matter what someone else says it makes them feel like, because this is going to happen throughout life with everything. One person will hate something, one person will love something, and that's all it should matter to those individual people. But we tend to get either empathetic, or we feel what they're saying, or we're just influenced because we feel weird standing out from what someone else has to say and saying, well, I feel the complete opposite, because it almost feels wrong. Like if someone tells you, they are very certain and feel a certain way, to go against what they say and say, well, I feel the opposite, that for whatever reason, and that's part of our society training and our ego, feels wrong to go the opposite direction and say, well, actually, I feel the opposite of you. I really love this thing that you seem to hate. So you have to get past that as well first, getting past just feeling the opposite of what someone says they feel and being okay with the fact that it may not be perceived well on their end. So it's about breaking free from the things that you were made to feel you had to do and feel in order to operate as a normal citizen in this society, as well as your perception of what that even means. It's about being able to be freely yourself without worrying about what other people around you and your external environment may think of you. If you suddenly wanted to take up, let's say, singing or acting, painting, music, maybe you want to start a side hustle, write a book, start a podcast, take on a new hobby that feels unconventional to the people around you, maybe even quit your job and move to a different city, start your own business, whatever it is, even vocally express your opinion on a taboo topic within your personal life that feels normally difficult. It's all about change and the fear of change. It's about changing a part of your life that doesn't feel like you're allowed to change it for whatever internal reason that is for you. Or changing a part of your life that feels hard and difficult and you're fearful of what the outcome of that change may lead to. It really doesn't matter what it is. It matters that there is some resistance there that prevents you from doing the thing that you most desire because of society and because of the people around you. Because you're afraid of being judged by your mom, your dad, your friends, your family, whoever it is. Or because you told yourself it would be ridiculous to try to do something like that. Or because you think people like you can't do something like that. These are all made up arguments from your ego. Your ego thinks it's going to protect you once again from the things you desire the most based upon your current perception of life. A large, massive part of getting past all of that is detachment and neutrality. And that is where I want to actually dive in. The art of mastery of detaching and neutralizing. With detachment and neutrality comes the ability to not be affected or impacted by others in your inner circle, and as you expand, your outer circle, your external environment, and so on. It also comes with your ability to let go of the things that are no longer meant for you, as hard as that may be to do, because you are comfortable with being in the consistency of whatever it is that you are thinking of changing. It means that you aren't bothered what people think of you, your choices or actions you take in life, or how you outwardly present yourself to the world. It means you welcome in the fear of change as a friend you're going to walk next to, instead, to step into new horizons you can see ahead of you that you would have never seen before if you didn't take the steps forward. Our ego mind plays a huge role in this because it develops based on those exact things. How can we fulfill our id, or our basic needs and desires, while also following the rules of our own reality and also perceptions of our societal makeup and external environment? And then the superego steps in and tries to be the strongest voice between what is right and what is wrong. So let's focus on what it means to detach from it all and neutralize. The art of detachment really comes into play when you learn to let go. Let what happens to happen and not feel this strong attachment to the outcome of it. It's way easier said than done, right? So what are some things we can focus on? So what are some ways we can focus on detaching? First, I want you to think about how you feel about your current situation and circumstances that you've been thinking about changing. Whether you've made real plans to change it or literally it just feels like a daydream. What are the emotions that come up? And you can go back to episode 2 titled Life's Invisible Options for a quick visualization that will help you with neutralizing. But basically, we want to look at these things that we are thinking about and all the attached worries and emotions of the outcome and strip them away. In this visualization, I talk about how you go to a calm place in your mind and walk through this to get there. And you can see all the things you've been thinking about and worrying about, and they're just floating by you, and you're observing them as if they are not your problems, but rather from the perspective of that they are someone else's problems or situations. You are watching someone else's life situations instead of your own, like a third-party perspective. Now, if you were to do that for yourself, Now you can kind of get into the thought process of detaching your emotions, even if it were for a moment and the outcomes you're so worried about. We can say, what if those problems we think may arise if we change this situation didn't happen? What if it all worked out? Then how would we feel? In a perfect world, what if everything aligned perfectly? Erase the worries. Then how do you feel about this thing that you want to change? Do you feel a strong pull to the desire of it still? That's telling in itself. If you said to me, well, I would really dream of moving to New York City. For all intents and purposes, let's just use this as an example. I would love to quit my job and move to New York City, but of course that's just a dream. I would never do it. I have a really stable job and I'm in this situation and there's a lot of commitments and blah, blah, blah. You keep going on. And what if I said to you, okay, in this perfect scenario, let's pretend that you could easily move. Let's say that everything worked out, maybe your job let you relocate, or maybe it was time for you to quit your job and at just the perfect timing, another one opened up and it was really easy to find an apartment and it was the perfect price point. Everyone else in your life was very supportive and they were excited for you to move, and you had friends in New York City too that were waiting for you to come. What if every single thing just worked out perfectly? Then I would ask you, would you go? If this was the perfect scenario, would you go? And if your answer is, well, absolutely, I would go. Of course, if this worked out perfectly, I would go. This is in a heartbeat. This is my dream. I'm going to tell you then that's what you're called to do. If you sit there and you can tell me how much you desire this thing, and this is something that means so much to you, life is way too short to sit here and say, well, this excuse and that excuse and this may not work. And it doesn't matter. Like, we are on this planet for such a short amount of time. What are you wasting your time for and making up excuses for? It's really easy to make a ton of excuses. It also can be easy to make things work. And that's the other side of it a lot of us don't want to even think about. It could be easy to make it work also. It could happen. We could take the steps to make things work out. And there are the people that do it, and then there's the people that don't, and they say, I don't know how they did that. They just worked it out. They got lucky. It just all seemed to work out for them. No, they took the actions to get there. They actually made a point to change something in their lives. So if I stripped away all your worries and we said, well, in the perfect world, if this all worked, is this something you desire? That means that is something that is meant for you, in my opinion. That means that is something that you should be trying to actively work towards, because that would change things for you. That would instill happiness within you. That would allow you to open up more, expand more, whatever it is. You were holding yourself back. You can make a difference and change in your life. You just have to take the action steps to do it and stop making excuses as to why you can't do it for this reason and that reason, when those are just little obstacles in the way. Everything is going to have its own obstacle, everything. So you're just deciding to go with the obstacles that you have right now rather than deciding to work with other obstacles that may arise in a different way. These are the ones you're choosing to deal with rather than choosing to deal with different ones. There's always going to be something, right? This is just how life on earth is, but you're choosing, technically. You are choosing, and that's something that comes with accepting that when you accept your own reality rather than playing victim to your own reality, you realize that you are making a choice in your life. Regardless of what the situation is, you still are making a choice about it. So another important thing to do is let go of the outcome. For those of us who want to control the outcome so badly, we need to embrace allowing the flow of life to come in and stop resisting. And this is also perfect to check out in episode 3 titled Masculine and Feminine Energy, where I talk about specifically how to integrate more feminine energy into your life when you're dealing with this kind of issue, which is allowing for more flow and the steps to take to get there. Because when we have too much masculine energy within ourselves, we kind of block that flow off and also block the ease of it for us to, allow that for our minds to even rest at ease with just allowing what happens to happen. So how do we let go? How do we detach? How do we neutralize? So here are some actions you can start taking today that will help change this for you, even in small ways right now. Stop forcing situations, number 1. If things do not work out, there is a lot of resistance somewhere. Work to let it go and move on to the next. Forcing against resistance, and by resistance, I mean when things are not working out, no matter how hard you try, and you aren't deeply in love with this situation either. And that's an important key part there. This means you are forcing against a resistance and flow of life. You can keep pushing and forcing, but you're going to waste a lot of energy. And a lot of times this has to do with our ego too, where our ego just wants to keep pushing, but we actually, in our heart, maybe don't actually care that much or don't feel too much pull to this, but our ego is saying, no, but I need to push this. I need to be right, or I need to make this work, just because it's an ego thing. So why burn out and keep the things you aren't even deeply passionate about alive? Probably because there is the comfortability and consistency, even if it's bad consistency. This idea can go as wide and as long-term as a bad relationship, or even an entrepreneur who doesn't know how to delegate or pivot. Let go and stop forcing. Embrace help, change, and flow. Okay, and this goes right into number 2, which is letting go of what people perceive and think of you. For instance, a lot of times I've had situations come up, especially when starting out as a young entrepreneur, where I felt this strong pull to prove myself to the people around me. I had people doubt what I already accomplished, literally already accomplished. People were doubting what I did and speak down on the things I've done, and when they've never even stepped foot in the same industry or took the same path I had. I've had people give credit to the male partners I worked with, even when I did it completely on my own. And all I wanted to do was argue and prove myself every time. And for what? Why? Because my ego wanted people to believe I was capable. Because to me, without the approval of those around me, I wasn't even sure I was capable, and I had already done it. And because when people doubted me, it hurt my ego. What is the point of that anyway? Do you know how many times I've had someone try to show me up in a conversation just because they wanted to prove they knew something more than me? This happens to everyone all the time. It's not just me. And why? Because we are ego obsessed. But the point you want to get to is, who cares? And I've worked myself to getting to a point where I don't even involve myself in those types of conversations anymore. I know what I am capable of. I know I value what I bring to the table. I know what I've accomplished thus far and I'm capable of doing. And when I experience these situations where it's an ego show off, I literally just sit back and observe. I don't care to have one of those. It's a waste of my energy. And when I did, I lost a lot of my energy, and it consumed a lot of my time and my mind even after the fact. And for what? What does it go to show for? So what I want you to learn how to do in order to empower yourself and not let the perceptions of others around you get to you is to detach from the idea you need to prove yourself to literally anyone. You have you know what you can do. And if you aren't sure what you can do, then work on yourself and prove to only yourself what you can do. Stop worrying about proving a single thing to anyone else. Guess what? It will eventually show up and speak for itself. I say this all the time. I always say, those who need to speak the loudest and speak to what they can do or what they have done probably have not done as much as they say. And it goes with the whole actions speak louder than words. The actions of what you do will speak loud enough. It may not show up in that moment, but it will eventually. What do you need to prove yourself to anyone for? For external validation? Validate yourself. Speak to yourself. Work on yourself. So it's really important to get past this. This is a major thing because it comes up with anything you do. If you want to quit your job, you want to move, you want to start a new hobby, start a new business, take up something different in your life. This all has to do with your own self-empowerment and validation and getting past worrying about your ego, who wants to fight everyone who comes in your way and says, why do you want to do this? What does this have to do with anything? Are you even experienced in this? How much of this is going to take away from what you already are working on? Is this worth the money? How do you have money for it? It doesn't matter. If you can support yourself and if you can take care of yourself, go do what you want to do. This is your life. Okay, number 3. Again, I say this all the time. Start meditating and grounding yourself. Spending more time in nature and moving your body. All of these things are so imperative when it comes to having a healthy, functioning mind. A lot of these things help us ground ourselves, especially when we are inundated with social media and our screens and spending so much time and consuming, get yourself out of consuming and be in a more creating place. Less consuming, more creating. And this even, I don't touch on food very much because of its own triggers for people, but in general, take in less sugar if you can, because the sugar is what compromises a lot for us in our brains and causes us to not function properly. It calcifies our pineal gland, and so does a lot of other things. But sugar in itself, if you can start taking sugar out of your regular diet, just less of it, not saying eliminate it completely, but sugar makes it hard for us to think clearly and connect with our higher selves. And some will say, yes, that is part of the matrix. Okay. But sugar, it's fun and it's great and it's yummy, whatever it is, and it still can be enjoyed, but try to have less of it. Just try to take a little less of it. I notice when I, just have more cleaner foods, my brain works better. I can think more clearly. I'm not sitting there forgetting words I'm trying to say or forgetting what I was going to say in a conversation. Or maybe even just channeling through my work of what I'm doing as an entrepreneur and some of the ideas that they come in so much faster and I think more clearly. I have more energy in general. A lot of these things just have to do with having, cleaner foods for your body. It doesn't matter. I'm not talking about calories. I'm not talking about how much you eat. I'm talking about just clean food that helps you feel good because your body needs to function on that. And that goes with hydrating as well. And number 4, understand what you want in this moment is not always what you need. Let's talk about self-care for a second. We sometimes sit there and think, well, self-care is only about pampering ourselves and going to a spa, getting a massage. Sometimes self-care means doing the things that we need for our body or we need for our mind. Sometimes self-care looks like doing the things we don't really want to do, but we know will be good for us. And that goes with this as well. What you want in this moment is not always what you need. For a quick example, if you wanted to go out drinking with your friends, but you realize you are really dehydrated and exhausted and burnt out, and maybe you worked a really long week and you really just should rest because you're going to get sick and you don't want that for yourself. And I don't know, it could be a million different things. What is it that you want? Oh, I really want to go out. But what is it that my body needs to prevent future issues? It's this compromise, right? So that also can happen in life moments with things we want to change. Sometimes people want to move to another place, but they're not ready to move yet. Maybe it wasn't the right time in their life. Maybe they didn't have enough savings to completely change their life around. Whatever it is, sometimes what you want in that moment is not always what you need. And what you want will come forward. It's just at a different time. And it's about learning how to listen to your body, listen to your current situation, embrace patience and slowness, and embrace listening to the universe, listening to yourself, listening to your needs, your personal needs. Okay, number 5, have patience and gratitude. Okay, that is a very simple, basic statement, but patience and gratitude go very deep within our certain situations, whether it's having patience with the people around you, having patience with your family members, with yourself. A lot of times we don't have patience with our current career situations, or maybe we have injuries that we're working on healing that we don't want to wait to get back to exercising. Whatever it is, your patience in life is a huge, huge key tool. Your ability to be patient will reflect in everything you do. Whether that be cooking, whether that be working, whether that be your own body, your mind, working with other people. And it's really easy to see when someone has patience and when they don't in just their everyday life. Whether that even be driving on the road and being patient on the road. And patience is such a badass tool. When I see someone who has a lot of patience, I'm like, wow, you're strong. You have it together. Because patience is something that takes so much willpower to have, and to have it demonstrate across how you operate in life is very impressive. So work on your patience, and gratitude comes with your patience, because when you learn to be patient, you learn to start being grateful. You actually start embodying gratefulness because you witness situations differently. It's like going through life a little slower in real time, and you get to really be grateful for the things that happen. And you'll start seeing things very differently, and it's really beautiful when you start seeing things in this more slow and grateful perspective. And number 6, accept that suffering is usually from your own personal victimhood and lack of acceptance of what is in order to make changes. And this is a really hard pill to swallow for a lot of people. This was something that has been very difficult for me when I went through a lot of difficult times in my life. Suffering happens when we don't also take control of our own situations. And I'm not talking about some of the most extreme situations going on in the world. I'm talking about in our personal lives when we are feeling miserable about things and we just feel there is no way to change it. That is a choice. And it's really important for us to take control of that choice, to grab that choice and say, this is my choice. Do I want to change my choice? Because the victimhood is a result of us accepting what is going on as the only option. And when we accept it a different way and say, well, this is not the only option. I accept this is my situation. This is not the only option. There are technically other options. And that goes back to what I said before. In a perfect world, would you change this? And if the answer is yes, there are other options. It just means that you are perceiving that there are not other options. There's always other options. People do amazing things in their lifetime because they decide to see the other options. And this also goes back to my episode on life's invisible options, seeing other options as your options and not just deciding there is this strict boundary wall up and there's no other way to go. That's your own limitations. So working to accept that your personal suffering is from your personal victimhood is also allowing you to then say, okay, this situation sucks. I'm miserable or I'm unhappy or I just don't like it, whatever it is, and saying, how can I change it? And it doesn't matter, like ignore what everyone else says. Everyone else can be around you telling you this is the only way. There's no way out of this. You'll never get out of it. Whatever it doesn't matter. You can get out of it. You can change it. There are other options out there. So overall, my take is that our souls come into this body, and as humans, we are programmed with certain thoughts and blocks and external energetic fields with frequencies that we learn to take on from our families, our communities, our school, our society. And we now have to learn how to work through and past those to achieve what our souls were meant to do in this lifetime. And I know that you can do that. This is the time to wake up, and this is the time to change your life, to be happier, to be aligned with yourself, embrace this very short timeline we have on Earth, because it is short. It is really short. And as I get older, I really witness how short it is, because when I was younger, a day felt like a week felt like a month felt like a year, and a year felt like eternity, right? And now days are going by so much faster. Weeks go by in a blink, and months are like going by and as if it's a few days. And the years, they go by quickly. And you always hear this, and it's true, especially as you get older, as you start perceiving life differently. Take advantage of the time you have here. Of course, aside from the fact that we have a certain life expectancy at our ages, you never know. You never know what's going to happen. It doesn't matter, though. What are you making use of your time here for? What are you doing with your time? And that doesn't always mean you have to do a lot of things, but are you finding happiness within your time? Are you feeling good within your time? Are you feeling aligned within your time here? If you're not, if you feel very far from that, you absolutely can change it. And I really implore you to change it, because it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how much you do. It just matters how you feel and how you embrace life. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks for listening into episode 8 and getting into that 888 alignment. Stay tuned for next week's episode. I'll chat with you guys next time. Thanks for listening to the 888 Align podcast. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you want to follow along and stay up to date when future episodes drop. You can listen in on Spotify, Apple, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Follow the podcast on social at 888 Aligned Podcast.